Hello and welcome to the Python tutorial series. My name is Steve and today we're going to introduce the concept of the elif and else statements, which are kind of more conditional statements that will get paired with your if statements. Now I oftentimes kind of struggle or at least think about where do I want to introduce elif and else. Originally I introduced these two concepts along with the if statements, but I find it's a little bit easier to practice using an if statement before introducing these, because if you understand an if statement, then elif and else will be pretty natural. If you try and introduce all three at the same time, for some new programmers it can be a little bit overwhelming. So if you have a good handle on how the if statement works, this particular lesson should be a breeze for you. And there's been a couple times as I've been programming example programs for the course up to this point where I found myself wanting to use elif and else statements, and I've refrained from that simply because we haven't introduced the concept yet. But today we're going to take a look at what an elif statement, what an else statement is, and how they pair up with your if statements. So in just a second we're going to head over to our programming window and write an example program. But here's the basic rundown of how the elif, which stands for else if, and else statements work. Python is going to always pair the elif statement and else with an original if statement. You can't have an elif and you can't have an else without first starting with an if check. Python will first check to see if your if statement is true. If the check is true, Python will execute the entire block of code beneath the if statement, just like you've seen in all your previous programs. Once the block has been executed, it will ignore all the else if and else statements that follow. However, if the if check is false, it will move on to the next elif statement, or I guess your first elif statement, if it exists. If the elif check is true, Python will execute that entire block of code and skip all the remaining else if and else statements. If that else if check is found to be false, it will then move on to the next else if and keep moving until it runs out of else if statements. It will then look for an else statement. An else statement simply says if all the conditions we've checked have found to have been false, then run the block of code beneath our else statement. It's probably easier to give you an example, so let's go ahead and write a sample program. Now I'm going to write a program here that is based on my friends wanting to borrow money from me. So I'm going to write a function called borrow money. And in order for my borrow money function to execute, I need to know how much money is in my wallet and how much my friends are asking to borrow. So this function will check to see if I have enough money in my wallet to loan a friend. So the first check that I'm going to make is to see, is the amount of money in my wallet greater than the amount of the loan my friend is asking for? And you've done this before. If money is greater than loan, we're going to print a line that says, yes, I have enough money to loan you. We're very friendly. We're going to loan our friend some money, and then we're going to hand them the cash in our wallet. Once we hand them the cash in our wallet has less money, our friend has some money, so we have to subtract the amount of the loan from our current wallet. So if I had $30 and I loan out $20, then I'm only going to have $10 remaining. And I might even print a message to that effect. I now have %s dollars remaining. And that is going to be equal to money. And let's just stop right there and run this program and see if this is working correctly. I'm going to execute this program. I'm going to type borrow money. And the amount of money that's in my wallet is $30. And the amount of the loan is $20. So I have $30. I'm being asked to loan $20. And the program executes correctly. Yes, I have enough money to loan you. I now have $10 remaining because I have to subtract 20 from 30. Now the other condition that could be true is if the amount of money I have is less than the loan amount. If I don't have enough money to loan based on the request, I simply have to turn down the request. So I'm going to print, I'm sorry, I don't have the money to loan you. Because I'm not loaning any money, I don't have to manipulate the money variable. Let's go ahead and test that case. I'm going to run borrow money, and I have $30 in my wallet, but in this case, my friend is asking to borrow $50. I don't have the money to loan them, and so I get the appropriate message, I'm sorry, I don't have the money to loan you. So this is something that you may have been writing in they're similar to some of the previous programs that we've been working on. But there's going to be a bug in this program that's going to rear its head, and I'm sure some of you have even encountered this before. Let's run this program and say that I have $30 in my wallet, and my friend is asking to borrow $20. I've got a problem here. Every single line of code executes. Yes, I have enough money to loan you. I now have $10 remaining. I'm sorry, I don't have the money to loan you. What's going on is these if statements, this block of code that's highlighted here, and this block of code that is highlighted here, are executing independently in order as you've come to understand as you run these programs. So what's happening when I make this function call is money is equal to 30 and loan is equal to 20. If money is greater than loan, so if 30 is greater than 20, which is true, we execute this block of code. Yes, I have enough money to loan you. We subtract 20 from 30, meaning that I have $10 left in my wallet, and I print I now have $10 remaining. And on the Python shell on the left, you can see that's true. The issue now is money is equal to 10, not 30 anymore, because we've manipulated that number. We now do a separate if check and says, if money is less than loan, so if 10 is less than 20, which it is, because we've since changed the money variable, we're going to print, I'm sorry, I don't have the money to loan you. Since that's true, we're printing this line of code as well. In essence, we've created a bug in our program, and we're going to have to fix it. The way we're going to fix it is by using the else if and else statements instead of a series of if statements. So as I stated earlier, an else if statement is always paired with an initial if statement. A simple way to fix this problem is to change the second if check to an elif statement. What's going to happen when we run this program is it will check this block of code right here. If that first block of code is found to be true, it will ignore all subsequent else if checks. With that simple change right there, when I run borrow money, when I have $30 and my friend asked to borrow 20, the program works correctly. And the reason is, once we found one true if statement, all the following elif statements will be ignored, and it will move to the next block of code that's not an elif statement. So I could add an infinite number of else if statements. I could say if money equals loan, print, let's see, I'll have to think about it. And that's because if I executed this loan, I'd have no money remaining. So I'm going to borrow money. And this time, let's say $30, and they're asking to borrow $50. It's saying, I'm sorry, I don't have the money to loan you. The reason is when it executes this program, it's checking, is money greater than loan? It's not, so it ignores that block of code and goes to the next else if statement, which is here. It says, is money less than loan? And indeed it is. 30 is less than 50, and it prints, I'm sorry, I don't have the money to loan you. So it ignores all the else if statements that follow, completely ignoring them and going to the next line of code that it can execute. In this case, it's the end of the program. If I were to do the same, if I were to do borrow money, they're asking for $30 and I have $30, my program says I'll have to think about it. So an else if statement simply means else if. Otherwise, if the first if statement isn't true, then I'm going to check the next condition, but once I find one that's true, I'm simply going to stop checking for more. In order to get an else statement in here, we're going to add a layer of complexity to our borrow money function. And in order to do that, I want to have the function call made inside the program. That way I don't have to keep coming over to the Python shell and typing it. So at the end of my program, I'm going to make the function call. And for right now, I'm going to just put in 30 and 20 and execute this program. And you can see when I have 30 and then 20 is passed, it loans the money correctly. In order to make these easy to change, I'm going to initialize a money variable at 30, and I'm going to initialize a loan variable at 20. And in my function call, I'm going to change the arguments to money and loan. That way it always matches what I've initialized at the start of my program. This is just a quick way for me to run the program a bunch of times and easily manipulate what the money and loan amounts are without constantly having to type them into the Python shell. I can see if money equals 30 and loan equals 20, then I make the loan. If I have $20 in my wallet and the loan amount being requested is 20, I'll have to think about it. And if I have $30 and the loan request is 50, I'm sorry, I don't have the money to loan you. So with this quick change to the program right here, it just makes it a little bit easier for me to change the numbers and execute it a whole lot of times without constantly having to type in the function call. And the reason I want to do this is I'm going to add a new layer of complexity to this program, and that is I want to see if the person asking me is a friend. When my program executes, I want to know whether or not you're a friend of mine. You might be a stranger, you might be a relative that I don't see too often, but I only want to loan money to my friends. So I'm going to add some information to this program so that I can tell whether or not the person asking me to borrow money is a friend. And I'm going to do that with the addition of a Boolean variable. I'm going to call that variable friend, and I'm going to set it equal to true or false. You either are my friend or you're not. There's no other answers. I'm going to let my borrow money function in on this information by adding friend as a parameter. I'm also going to have to pass this in at the time of the function call by adding friend as an argument. So now when my function runs, I know how much money I have, I know how much money is being asked of me, and I know whether or not it's a friend who's asking me for that money or whether it's not a friend. As of right now, the execution of this program won't change at all because although I know whether or not they're my friend, I'm not doing anything with that information. So the first thing that I want to alter is this first if statement. I only want to loan money to my friends. If you're not a friend of mine, I'm not giving you any money. So I'm going to say, if money is greater than loan and friend is true, then yes, I have the money to loan you, and I'm going to hand it to you. As a side note here, this will work right here. If I check to see is friend equal to true, but by default, when I add a variable, it's simply going to check to see whether or not it's true or false if I give it no other information. So a faster way to write this line right here, instead of saying is friend equal to true, I can just say friend. If friend is equal to true, that will execute. If it's not, it will be ignored. So if I have the money and you're my friend, I'm going to loan you the money. If I don't have the money and you're my friend, then I'm going to let you down gently. And I'm going to say, I'm sorry, friend, I don't have the money to loan you. And I'll even add another line. I'll say print, ask me again tomorrow, because I want to let you down gently. You're a friend of mine. If money is equal to loan, it doesn't matter whether you're my friend or not. I'm going to simply say, I'll think about it. And this is going to execute whether or not you're my friend or not. If you're asking for the amount of money that I have, it doesn't matter whether you're a friend or a stranger. I'm simply going to think about it. When I execute this program, I'm sorry, friend, I don't have the money to loan you. That's because I've got $30 and they're asking for $50. But if they're only asking for $20, yes, I have the money and I'm going to loan that money to you. But what happens if it's not a friend that's asking me for money? To simulate that, I'm going to change my friend variable to false. The person asking me to borrow money is not a friend. See, when I execute this program in the shell, it's not printing anything. Let me try with 50 and 30. Nothing. Okay, I have $100. They're asking me for 10. I'm still not getting any response. And that's because none of my if checks, my if and elifs, are not being executed because none of them are true. Is money greater than loan and they're my friend? Well, no, they're not. Money is greater than loan, but they're not my friend, so this block of code right here won't execute. Is money less than loan? That is false, and they're not my friend, so I have two false statements here, so this line of code won't execute. And is money equal to loan? Well, 100 is not equal to 10, so that's not true, and none of these statements are executing. This is where an else statement can come in very handy. An else statement is simply written else colon. There's no additional checks. There's no if x equals y or money equals loan or if you're my friend. An else statement says in all other cases, if I've gone through a series of checks, be it 1 check, 5 checks, 1,000 checks, if I've gone through and none of them are true, the else block of code will execute. And in this case, I might print you're not my friend. Stop asking for money. Now, I have $100 and the person is asking me to borrow 10. It says, you're not my friend, stop asking me for money. All three of these statements right here are false, so I'm going to tell them to stop asking me. The reverse can be true as well. I have $10 and they're asking me for 100. You're not my friend, stop asking me for money. It doesn't matter how much is in my wallet, it doesn't matter how much they're asking for. The simple fact is, if you're not my friend, I'm not going to loan you any money. In fact, the only thing that a non-friend can get in the way this program is set up right now, if I have $30 and they're asking for $30, they'll get an I have to think about it. That's because we'll get to this block of code false, this block of code is false, this block of code evaluates to true. Money is equal to loan, it prints I'll have to think about it, but since it found a true statement in this whole series, the else statement doesn't execute in that case. So that, in a nutshell, is how the if, elif, and else statements work. As you write programs in the future, you'll probably find that you rarely use a series of if statements like we've done in the past. Most of the time, you'll be using if followed by a few elif statements and then an else statement. In the next lesson, which is 17.2, I want to look at how the else statement can be used to help you debug your programs. It's something that I often use when I'm writing some simple programs. I also want to give you some examples of more program flow and how the if, elif, and else statements are executed. It may be a little bit redundant in lesson 17.2, but it is, I think, an important concept, and it shouldn't be too long. We'll look at that in the next lesson, and then you'll have a challenge program that will have you use the if and elif and else statements to write a utility program centered on calculating whether a year is a leap year. So that's where we're going in lesson 17.2, and we're very close to our third project in the Python tutorial series. So thanks for sticking with me. If you have any questions about if, elif, or else, you can go ahead and leave them in the comments, and I will help you out any way that I can. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.